Welcome to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, where world-changing spiritual entrepreneurs come to deeply awaken the power within to bring forth their greatest purpose, to create massive awakened impact for millions of souls around the planet, while enjoying being in tune with all life and real wealth in all aspects of their lives. I'm your host, Daniel John Hanneman. Hello, everybody. I'm so grateful to have you here. We got an amazing time together, and I've been looking forward to this interview. Months ago, I met Karen, and Karen, I'm just so glad you're here today.
Thanks, Daniel. I'm so excited. I just love your podcast, and the name is the best.
Thanks. Yes, yeah. So I'm just so grateful. You were on another thing that I was speaking on and all that, and we started connecting then, and I just loved your authenticity and the uncensored aspect of it and the power of that. We're going to talk about that today. We were laughing before the show. We're like, well, maybe we should warn them, because who knows what's going to emerge. That's his uncensored territory. So if you're too sensitive, or you've got kids around and whatnot, just get a heads up. It's an uncensored show today. So
Shit's gonna get real.
there you go. It's already getting real. All right. All right. So this is fun. Okay. So again, I want you to make a radical step in your life. This will transform your life. Now, all you have to do is subscribe. It's that simple. All you do is hit the subscribe, and then your life has changed. I mean it. Like when you do it with intentionality, like subscribe. All right, you're changing your life. All right, hooray. I like that. So let's go ahead and talk about Karen. Karen Seltz has got her master's in education. She's the Uncensored Self-Love Coach, supports women to fully embrace all the parts of themselves and develop the courage and confidence necessary to create meaningful, vibrant lives they're passionate about. After attaining more and more degrees and certifications. Sound familiar, folks? That sounds like a lot of people listen to it. That she rarely utilized. Karen realized she could never know enough to be confident. She became depressed, addicted to sex, and suicidal. After countless types of therapy and over $500,000 spent on coaches, mentors, and many hours and 12-step and other support group meetings, Karen realized that it wasn't really confidence she was after. What she truly wanted was self-love and self-acceptance. I just love that. Self-love is. I'm just so glad you're here. So, using the wisdom that she discovered on her own journey, Karen now inspires and teaches other women to love themselves unconditionally first in order to create extraordinary lives that they previously thought were only possible for others. She is uncensored in her approach and is willing to go wherever she needs to go, say whatever she needs to say, and do whatever she needs to do to get her clients to break free from limiting past stories and beliefs and become who they came here to be. Karen has a master's again in education and counseling. She is a certified life coach, licensed brain gym, registered consultant, and also an author with more than 25 years of combined experience. As a former comedian as well, Karen is able to share her journey from depression, addiction, self hatred to self compassion, self acceptance, and self love, vulnerably with a touch of humor on countless stages and podcasts. So again, geez, so glad to have you here, Karen. And I love that. I love all of it. And I was just saying to myself, again, I say to myself often, I'm like, the areas where I might judge myself, I just say, because I've got this like strict kind of part of me, right? So, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about in the bio. It's like, well, you didn't do it quite enough there. Now get down into it. You need new stuff. You need to do better. And it's like it couldn't, that well is deep. It goes forever. Like you will never be good enough, right? So the more I can realize, wait a minute, if I just love myself and I don't have an idea of this pressure that I have to do anything, now what's possible? And I find for me, like it allows me to experience a much richer life It also allows me to do much better work actually in the world, even better work. It's the opposite of what the mind thinks. It's allowing me to do better work because I'm not feeling like resentful and like I got to push this. Oh, it's time. I got to do the 3 hour meditation. All right, I better do it. So that's what these are the things I've noticed. So that's why I'm so excited to have you, Karen. As I am big. There's a big foundation of my work as well is self love with my clients. It's a big thing for them. They need to love themselves. So I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. It's really interesting. We've all heard, oh, you have to love yourself before you can love anyone else. And rarely do people tell you how to do it.
Hmm.
And it used to just piss me off, and it still does, that people will just pontificate about all these things and then not give people anything practical. So
Hmm.
that's what I do. I'm really super practical. And I break
Okay.
it down into stories and analogies and just things that are usable that people can take today
Right.
and begin their journey of self-love and self-acceptance.
Right. Awesome. I like that. Yeah. So let's talk about it. So let's first talk about, you've got a very deep and compelling, background in terms of like, wow, all these things that you experienced on your path and how that led you to where you are today doing this work. So tell me about your background with, quite frankly, with self-hatred and all the usual suspects. But even as strong as self-hatred, which I think I like that you talk about self-hatred because you don't hear that a lot. You don't hear people talk about self-hatred a lot. So let's talk about self-hatred first, and we'll talk about all the practical and all the good about self-love, right?
Yeah, it's what I've found is for me, embracing where I am in any moment is the only way through it. So for years, I denied that I was hating myself. I just said, no, I don't hate myself. I just, I'm self sabotaging, right? Like a little milder form. But when I was self sabotaging, it was because I hated myself. It was because I didn't feel like I was worthy of anything better than I was getting or creating for myself. And in this country, well, most countries, with what I was doing when I was active in sexual addiction, like you can't really say it any other way. I was hating myself. I was debasing myself. I was not valuing myself at all. And I was trading sex essentially to feel better about myself, to get this form of safety. Because back then I thought if I'm only safe if somebody wants me, like if a man wants to have sex with me, then I'm safe, I'm lovable, I matter. And it was so backward. My value and my worth didn't come from within, it came from without. And that isn't that deep well you were talking about in the beginning. Like nobody can fill it. No amount of praise, no amount of pleasure, no amount of sex, no amount of shopping, drugs, alcohol, nothing can fill that void. It has to come from within and with your connection, from your connection with the divine.
Right. Right. So, yeah, I mean, everybody has their own story about, what they've experienced in their life. And, if I think about myself, I think about self-hatred, I suppose, but it's like, again, it's funny. I think it's important to hit on this, like to really hit on it, like, because some people, oh, I don't know if I've been that bad, but think about it. Like, think about how you've been hating on yourself. Like, I suck at this and I suck at that. And I even said it to my coach today. I sent her a little voice message thing. And I said, I'm not going to love myself on this one because I think I'm not going to say this kindly, but I really been sucking at this or that. like, I, and it is like, and I said it like, because I was watching myself, I'm like, yeah, because part of you wants to viciously rip at yourself. Like, you're a piece of crap. You don't deserve a damn thing. And, like it just goes on. Everybody has a reason why. I mean, for me, what is it? I don't know. Like, partly it was a feeling just, cultivated in me. I'm not going to blame other people, but in my family, like the idea like everybody had a higher IQ. Like supposedly everybody has their IQs tested. I have the lowest one. So what an idiot I am. You're junk. They got the higher IQs. How are you going to possibly be worthwhile? They're more worthwhile than you are now, right? And so
Yeah.
like the sense of self-hatred, not liking yourself, because of these different things. So everybody's got something. So I'm wondering, like, what like, kind of what your thing has been, like, if you want to share something about that, and like what you see for your clients too.
Yeah, that sense of never enough, like you can never measure up. And, spiritually speaking, that's the ego wanting us to feel separate, wanting us to feel better than somebody else, wanting us to feel less than. In recovery, we say lots of things like we compare our insides to other people's outsides. And then the saying is compare and despair. And there's another saying, comparison is the thief of joy. Because as long as we're comparing ourselves in any way to anybody, it's laced with judgment. And when we're in judgment, we cannot be in our hearts. We can't be coming from a place of love and compassion. And we're letting the ego run us, not coming from spirit, from our highest selves. So there's lots of things I do with my clients. One of them is it's so funny because I actually learned this in stand-up comedy class. He said the number one cause of stage fright is judgment. Because when we judge others, we think that they are judging us just as harshly. And so we're afraid to make a mistake. We're afraid of being judged on stage. So when I got that, at first I'm like, oh, I'm not judgmental. Yeah, right. And then I left and somebody cut me off. I'm like, you mother, like.
Right, right,
So he had us keep a judgment journal. And I've taken that even further. What I do with my clients a lot of times is I'll start them on one page, I'll say judgments about myself. And then I have them skip several pages and say judgments about others. And it's a really deep exercise because the judgments about myself are things I know that I think about myself. Yes, I believe, like you're saying, like you're being your harshest own critic. Like, oh, I don't have as high of an IQ as my family or whatever. Like, you already know you think that. But your judgments about others, I don't usually tell them this until a week later. Those are their subconscious judgments about themselves.
right.
And that's where the deep work comes. Like, I didn't know I believed that. So then you can tell your conscious mind to start looking for those things. And I call it this process of stalking your thoughts, like you would an ex's Facebook feed. Like you just are constantly looking from like a higher mind, like, oh, that's interesting, like neutral. Interesting. Look what I'm believing. Look what I'm thinking. And you separate from that thought because it's not you, it's the ego, and don't resist it. Like just say, "Oh, that's interesting. I see you, ego. You can sit in the back seat and I'm going to let my higher self drive. But I see you. You can be here. You just can't drive."
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's funny you say you do that. That part of it is exactly what I do and share with my clients as well. It's like it's that part of it, like with the that's interesting part. I'm like, yeah, whatever comes up, if it's these crazy ideas and stuff, then instead of getting into it, just say, oh, whoa, I'm having these thoughts. That's interesting, and just being observant of it, right? And then that in itself is hugely dissipating of it for many people. And then yeah, like yeah, totally, and not letting that take over and start driving things, and putting fuel on the fire, because usually it's like when we're unconscious, it's like that's like the fuel on the fire. It's like we're not realizing it's these crazy thoughts coming into our awareness, for whether it's ego or collective ego or whatever it is that's coming in, like, well, and a lot of our listeners, again, and you too, it's like all of us, like we're listening here, we're more sensitive on average, we're more empathic, we're picking up on, yeah, I mean, who knows, but like it's a sense of like, you kind of are picking up on the overall field and what other people are thinking. So if you're around, other people are having all these negative thoughts, all of a sudden you're like, man, why am I thinking all these crazy thoughts? Like so that you can realize it might not even be your own, like, how you would think, like if you're on a mountain somewhere, for example, like, like, wow, I mean, this is interesting what's coming in right now. And really realize it. So when we can pick up on these things, so it's one thing to have an awareness, right? Like, oh, awareness, oh, that's interesting. But then it keeps coming back, let's say like 20 times a day or whatever amount of times it comes back, or 20 times in a month or whatever. But how do you teach people to work with those aspects as they come up? So, like practical tips we were talking about before.
It depends where they are in their development. Like when I just started, I love this Einstein quote: you cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. Which means if you have a problem in the ego mind, you're not going to solve it if you keep going down that path. You're just going to spin out and you're going to mind fuck yourself. So, what I did, I developed this practice of having a very low tolerance for being in what I call this state of sitting in my shitty diaper. It's a fabulous analogy. So, what happens is, when I'm in these thoughts and thinking that there's something wrong with me, I'm defective, I'm less than, I'm not good enough, or thinking I'm a victim, for example, I cannot change my shitty diaper myself. I just can't. It's like being handcuffed and sitting in shit. So I have a choice at that moment. I can sit in it. If I do, there are consequences. I'm going to get diaper rash. If I sit in it all day, it's going to get so heavy. When I stand up to take a step, it's going to fall off and fling shit everywhere on everyone, which is, it happens, right? We let things build and then we like project it out onto other people. We attack other people. We're mean. We say things that we can't take back. Or the moment we soil ourselves, we can say, oh my gosh, I'm sitting in shit. I'm going to call somebody who speaks my language. That for me is the quickest way to shift it. Like call somebody and say, I am believing this about myself. Can you remind me of the truth of who I am?
Mhm.
And that's it. It's so simple. You just pick up the phone and call somebody who speaks your language. Not somebody who's going to be a victim, not somebody who's going to co-sign your bullshit story, your beliefs about yourself that you're a victim or that you're limited. You don't want people like that. You want the people that are going to see you at your highest, to see you as perfect and on your perfect path and as a child of God or the universe that deserves abundance and happiness. And just talking to somebody else gets you to shift into your highest self. And then you're no longer sitting in your shit and you can be of service because you can't be when you're in those limiting beliefs about yourself. You can't be of service to anybody. You're like, you hate yourself. You're believing those lies. So
Yeah.
that's what I say is I call somebody.
Call somebody. So that's what you personally do. Now, some people might think everybody in my life is toxic. I don't have anybody to call, or I don't want to bother other people with my shit, and I don't,
Yes,
they have no sense of structure. So, I mean, it's a nice practical tip. Maybe if they
I
hire
have.
you, right? So, but yeah, so help me with that one there.
So here's the thing, to shift that way of thinking,
Yeah.
it is so generous of you to share your authentic self with someone, to reach out for support. I don't call it help because help means that you're lacking something, but you reach out for support. And how that's generous is if you drop into your heart before you call someone, like who do I get to call? And you just feel into it. The person that you choose needed to have you call them. They're sitting in their own diaper, probably. They needed to get out of themselves and be of service because they're probably struggling with the exact same thoughts. And you're giving them the opportunity to shift. So they shift, you shift, and it creates this ripple effect out in the world. And it's really interesting. It's taker energy. It's the opposite of generosity to sit in your shitty diaper because you're withholding your gifts from the world. You're withholding your love for your family and your friends. And, if you go to the supermarket, for example, and you're sitting in your shitty diaper, you're going to be like, you know, that person took cuts, you know, like, oh, get out of my way. Like, you're not loving. You're
Right.
and you have this energy that you're responsible for, that you're putting out into the world. So the quicker we can shift, because we all get there, we all have these moments where we're believing lies about ourselves. But the quicker we can shift it, the more of an impact we can have in the world. And the more we're going to be true to ourselves. We're going to be sitting in authenticity.
Right. 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 Yeah. So I like that what you said in terms of like looking at it, like the tuning in and all that. It's just a matter of then someone has to trust that. Like, okay, call it. Like, then take that leap. You've got to. That's where the growth is. You know, I tell people again and again every single day almost. You know, if I'm doing something that's helping me to really expand or grow, I feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable. I mean, I definitely did things already today. I was uncomfortable. I was like, oh shit, I've got to do that. You know, I go, damn. And yet it's like my work, it's my passion to do it. But for some part of me resists it because there's growth in it. There's this like, oh my God, I'm in it. Like I just want to work on this all day. Or I might even feel like that once I get into it. But at first, like, oh shit, I want to avoid it. I don't want to do it. And it's people say, you know, that's just not for me, that stuff. It's like, yeah, actually, some of that stuff anyway. I mean, certain aspects might be your passion if you actually get over your concepts about it. So, like, you know, when you show up for others, just to get back to what we're talking with that, like, even like I told you, I just hired someone, and I gotta say this is true. And I'm always kind of aware of this. I'm like, you know, I'm really looking forward to the blessings I'm receiving, but I'm also looking forward to all the blessings they receive by working with me. You know, like they're gaining so much by working with me, and that's true when I work with other people. I'm gaining so much by working with them. So I see it as rather than what I think is such an issue is all this separation idea. I'm a little being here, you're a little being there, and we come together and we help each other, and we're separate still. And no, we're all interconnected. It's like the more we're supporting each other by supposedly you're the teacher, I'm the student, whatever it is, but like, you know, we are playing these roles, but it's like we're loving each other. We're loving life. We're loving each other. We're loving ourselves, as you would probably put it ultimately. I mean, I believe that too. And so I think that's what's so important is to open that up and realize that by loving yourself in that way, you're actually doing a service to the world and to others as well. That's so great.
Yeah, and one more thing I'd like to add to that is when you actually reach out for support, you are telling your subconscious mind, I am worthy to receive. And
Mm-hmm.
that's huge. You know, people often come to me, they want to work on confidence. And confidence is a weird thing, right? Like it can come and go. I have them work on worthiness and courage. Because like you said, we get to get uncomfortable to stretch out of our comfort zones to grow. Otherwise, we're going to stay the same or devolve. We're not evolving. We're revolving around the same crap stories
Mm-hmm.
unless we do something different. We get to interrupt.
Mm-hmm. Right, right, right. You have to do something new, something different. If it's not feeling vibrant, then there's something else that wants to happen. Is how I always, how I look at it. Like you're not vibrant. What's that telling you? What's it trying to ask you to do so you can love yourself, so you can experience what you're meant to experience? And I think personally, okay, this is my thing. I would love your take on this. I don't necessarily think it's loving yourself, some of these motivational things sometimes though either. Like you'll be something once you work 1,000 hours a week and you know there's more in there. Give more, do it more. I actually think that can be the opposite of loving yourself. So I think we have to watch, some of these ideas. Well, be uncomfortable, make it as hard as possible. What's that all about? Like, no, we're not saying that. We're saying like just love. I believe what you're saying is love yourself. How can you nurture yourself as much as possible, whatever that means for you, right?
Yeah. And again, really loving yourself is focusing on which ways of being are you stepping into. They're already in there. But which ways of being are you choosing to embody? And I said every day I'm intentional. Like today, I'm committed to creating unconditional love, authenticity, rigor, abundance, whatever it is. And I'm intentional every day. This is who I choose to be. I don't set intentions of today I'm going to do because I'm not a human doing. I spent years in that race and I'm not going back there. My actions are inspired actions because of my focus and my intention on my ways of being.
Hmm. Right, right. So how do you teach people how to do that? Because I mean, for me, it's like one way, to do that I might utilize is like coming up with, whatever, one or two or three, like three words for me, like a day of like intentions of state of being, right? So like all these different ways that we can do it. What do you share with people to help them to do that?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. Like choose a couple ways of being and then you think to yourself, what would a person who is courageous do? What, and then every time you get to make a decision, you run it through a filter. I have them run it through a filter. Is it in alignment with my vision? And is it in alignment with my values? And if it's not, it's just an easy no. Like, no, no, thank you. That's not in alignment for me.
Right.
Because a lot of times people get in this state of overwhelm because they say yes to everything, which is not loving to themselves either. And then they don't have time for self care. They put themselves last. So that's one thing. And when you're looking at your vision and your values, what ways of being do I think I need to work on, right? And do I feel like I'm lacking, even though I'm not, but it seems like it. So then you step into those ways of being as a stretch. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you might think you're doing the wrong thing. I'm gonna get in trouble, or I'm too lazy, or I'm too this, or I'm too that. Who knows what ideas come up, right? But it's just your uncomfortableness speaking. Like, oh, are we safe? It's always, are we safe? Are we still safe? Because that's what our first thing is, right? Our commitment is to safety, right? Our
Hmm.
commitment is to safety at a basal level of our brain, even, right? So like we're like wired for safety at one level. And so when we go, it's like, wait, what are you doing? We don't know this safe. But our nature is to be evolving, evolving in our state of being and in our consciousness and whatnot. So when we go to shift, we have to go against what actually seems right in a way at first, because the survival energy. Oh my God, everybody's going to hate you. You're going to be stoned. You're going to be killed, burned at the stake
Right.
like the last life, right?
The other thing too, when I'm setting my intentions, like I'm committed to creating these ways of being, I also will make a list. The prices I'm willing to pay are, and these are the things that I'm afraid they're going to come up and sabotage me. So if I'm courageous, I'm afraid people are not going to like me. I'm afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid of not looking good. I'm afraid of not being perfect. Whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And are you willing to pay those prices just for today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is there's a lot of people. We both, of course, you would have clients experience this. There's a lot of people that have a tremendous load of guilt and shame that runs their life, tremendous amount. And I think it's more than what people realize. I think it's a little more, somewhat universal to a lot of people. And it's, a lot of times, like we talk about addiction cycles, right? So you said with sexual addiction, and like there's that sense of like, you're okay. Let's say in this like the cycle, you're like, ooh, okay, wow, I'm being loved right now, and this person's experienced love, right? Oh, it's all good, right? Whatever it is, people pleasing, whatever you want to call the pattern or whatever, or this just feels good. It must be right. It feels good. I'm feeling better. It's not hurting anybody. I just had a few drinks or whatever, whatever it is, right? So whatever the pattern is, it's like we're like, oh, that feels. Then afterwards, like the next morning, it's like, holy shit, what did I can't believe I did this again. Like, I am such a piece of shit or whatever. Like, I just so suck. And like, we go through this, and like, so that's more dramatic, maybe. Like, some of the big addictions might seem more dramatic. Then you got the small ones, like some of the spiritual entrepreneurs here. Like, okay, and I'm going to call that person today. Okay, it's time to do that. And then I'm going to do that marketing thing I was going to do, blah, blah, blah. And then, yeah, I'm going to contact people on Facebook, do a live, blah, 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 blah. Okay. All right. And then you get to the end of the day, you're like, holy shit, I got totally sidetracked. I didn't do it. I'm such a piece of shit. I've never, I don't, I'm supposed to love myself. Okay. I'm back to the namaste. I feel really bad about it. I feel really bad. I think I'll have some cookies or something. I don't know, or I don't know, whatever. Maybe I'll just pray about it now. You can do it live right now, actually, and just get over it. Like, do what you can. Like, you're getting all these concepts. Maybe I'll call my coach about how I didn't do what I was going to do. And all these ideas, it's like and then we just keep doing the same thing every day. Like, oh, I didn't do the live again. Oh shit! Man, what's wrong with me? I wish I'd get a better coach too. Like, maybe the better coach will solve this problem. I guess just, I don't know what's wrong. It must be my blocks. I need more people to help me with my blocks. So, how can you help people to love themselves that just stay in these patterns? They go back into shame. They distract themselves. Like, maybe they go to, but I went to a group healing last night. It felt really good for a while, but I feel so much shame. Like, it's like, it actually isn't like working, but like they keep distracting themselves with like courses and certifications and all this stuff, but they're not doing the things.
Yes.
Right, Karen?
Yeah.
Raise their hand.
Always.
Right, so how can people break through this? Like, I mean, I got a great advice for this, but I'm curious what you would say is the uncensored self-love coach.
Yes. There's so many layers to this
Yeah.
question. And uh, I'm going to start by saying this. What worked for me, first and foremost, to just get rid of the guilt and shame, especially around my addictive behaviors, was taking off my masks and being willing to tell the truth. Once I did that, it's really interesting because what I've found is we cannot feel loved unless we're willing to tell the truth about all of it, everything. Because we always think, yeah, sure, this person loves me, but would he or she love me if they knew this?
Right.
Like we hold back these pieces because we don't think they're lovable and we think people are going to reject us. When we just tell them and people still love us, we're like, oh my gosh, they didn't reject me. They didn't throw stones at me. Because here's how I learned this. I used to go to these group meetings. It was from a book called Real Love. And I was in this group of women and I was telling like some bullshit surface truth. And the host called me out. She's like, what are you afraid to tell us? And this is when I was active in my addiction and I was married. And I looked down at the floor and I'm like, okay, like in a split second, I'm like, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I don't know these women. I don't ever have to come back. If they throw things at me or try to hit me, I can run out that door, whatever. I had all this story and I just looked at the floor and I'm like, okay, I sleep with married men. And I was scared shitless that they were going to reject me, judge me, think I was awful because I thought that about myself, right? And finally, like it was silent and I didn't feel any like stabs. So I finally got the courage to look up. And all I saw on the faces of these women was compassion. I'm like, what the hell? Like, where am I? And then it opened up the floor. Like one woman said, I had an affair 10 years ago and I've never told anyone. And this shame is like eating me alive. Thank you for sharing. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And that was the first time I ever had the courage to share like vulnerably. And since then, it's been like a layer at a time. And I keep finding things. I mean, this was like 10 years ago or something. And I keep finding things where I'm afraid to talk about them. And the moment I feel that fear, I lean in now. I'm like, oh my gosh, cool. Oh, this scares the shit out of me. So I'll go do a Facebook Live. I'm like, this is so scary to me. I really have an old trigger around this. I feel like I'm going to be rejected. I feel like I'm going to die if I tell this, if people know this about me. But telling the truth in safe circles, like you don't just like go on a first date and say, oh, by the way, you know, Like you get
Right.
to pick your moments. You don't vomit on people, but you find people that are safe to talk to, and you tell the truth. And then, especially if it's your partner, you get to practice. You get to practice telling the truth. If it's your best friend, you get to practice. And that leads to being seen, truly seen, like with all your warts, all your baggage. And when you see that people really love you anyway, and they even love you more because you were willing to be honest and be authentic, it becomes so easy to do it. I mean, and that's one of the reasons that I'm willing to share my story in public, because I want other people to get this type of freedom, because it's freedom like no other. Nobody has anything on me. Nobody can say, oh, did you know she did this? Like, yeah, yeah, we did. She's talked about it on a podcast.
Right. We're going to get it all out there, right? So that's called getting ahead of the story, right? Ahead on the story.
But
I mean,
yeah, and it gives people permission. If I talk about the stuff that I did, I'm sure what most people have done is not nearly as bad. So they're like, well, if she could talk about that stuff without guilt and shame, without holding back, well, sure, I could talk about this. It's not nearly as bad. One of the areas that really gets me is parenting, because a lot of women, we judge ourselves so harshly about parenting. So I'll go on a live and say I just swore at my daughter, told her to get the f out of my room, and people are like, like they might do it too, but they would never admit it. And then I talk about what it brought up in me, like not being respected is the big one for me, and then how I cleared it with her, like how, because I don't just leave the space soiled, I clean it, I clear it, and I make sure she knows it had nothing to do with her. It was my crap.
yeah, 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 totally, totally. Yeah, I've apologized a few times to my daughters for sure. I mean, of course, and yeah, but I think it's so. I mean, yeah, just acknowledge, like, I don't know what it is. Like, yeah, there is that part of us that just as some concept that maybe it's from the Christian roots too, but like that most of us come from, but like you're going to supposed to be perfect, and and it's not, like if you're not perfect, then you're wrong, and you should feel really bad, and like you should
Oh,
just really get into it, right? Like whip yourself almost, and
yes.
it's very
Perfectionism is a silent killer. I tell people perfection is so boring. Like
yeah,
who can relate to someone who's perfect? If you see somebody online and they present this facade and they're perfect, everything they say is like perfect, you're like, what? This person's not real.
right.
I can't relate to that. Like, people don't want that anymore. People are smarter than that. They can read right through and see that it's a mask.
Yeah,
And it's impossible to keep up. I mean, you're setting yourself up for failure. I'm like, bring it on. Yes, I messed up. Yes.
yeah.
Like, I love when I have breakdowns now. Like, a breakdown to me is when I don't honor my word,
Hmm.
and I get to clear it. And then by clearing it, lots of things happen. Like I'm being 100% responsible for what I'm creating. I'm showing the other person how to clear. And I don't know, it does a lot of things for my self esteem. I used to hide from my mistakes. I'd be like, oh, I messed up. Maybe they won't notice. And I would hide. And then I felt like crap. I felt small. And I would hide.
Hmm.
I'd pull back. But now I'm like, yeah, I messed up. And this is what you can expect from me moving forward.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
learned.
One of the ways I think, because most of the people listening are either coaches or healers or trainers or aspiring to be, not everybody, but a lot of them are. So for that crowd, what I found for myself too, and can be very helpful, is like, when we say use your own stuff as material. I mean, to connect with your audience. I mean, okay, this is something that I'm dealing with today. Even, I mean, that's okay. I mean, I think sometimes that people say give it a week or two. I've heard that advice before. you're a total hot mess, you're doing total trauma, maybe that's a good idea. But sometimes even right on the spot, like, hey, today has been rough, blah blah blah. But what I learned is, and what I'm here to share with you today is, and like those often are the messages, the lives, or whatever we're doing, the talks we give that really, connect us with our audience even more because they feel the opportunity for deeper connection and love within themselves. So I think that's so important. What you're saying with that is like just really nourishing yourself by being willing to bring it to fore, because you're bringing healing not only to yourself but to others that experience the same things, right? So that's so beautiful.
Yeah, and that sharing with your audience like that gives them permission to do the same thing and helps them to release those ideals of perfection. They're like, "Oh, even my coach does this. Oh, it's okay for me then." Yeah.
Yeah, it gets us out of that fake idea of perfectionism out there. Well, they're perfect. What's my problem? Right? Like, I mean, and it makes it real, like, so that we don't have to keep creating this paradigm that like, there's these people that are perfect, they got everything together, and then there's everybody else, and I'm the worst one out of the lot, is usually what everybody, every person says is thinking maybe the sort of the same thing in that level, right? Sometimes, and oh, I'm far worse than the rest, and whatever it is,
Mhm.
I'm worse in this way or that way. I'm more flawed, That's what an ego trip. Oh, it's cut it the hell out. Like, what an
Right.
ego trip. You think you're that special, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I know, like when I first started coaching, I'm like, oh, I can't show that because no one will hire me if they think I don't have my shit together. And so I was not authentic and I didn't do so well. Then it wasn't until I could just own those parts, like all that's part of my stance is like I own every part of myself and they're all neutral, right? Like the part of me that's a bitch, that's neutral. The part of me that's so unconditionally loving, it's neutral. They're the same. They're all part of me and they all have value. Like there are times when it serves everyone for me to be a bitch. And when I'm coming from my highest self, where like when I'm coaching, for example, I'll say like get me out of the way, speak through me. Sometimes I'm a bitch and I don't know what because I don't know what that person needs and I don't know what it's for. I just allow. I used to not trust it. I used to censor it.
Right.
I used to think, oh, this person's going to fire me if I say that.
Right.
But that's like part of the uncensored thing. Like, I don't know. I don't know what anybody needs.
Right.
That's the ego thinking I know what's best for someone. If I get in that place, I'll say, just a minute, I have an opinion. And I like take a step back and I go within, right? But it's never perfect. Like
Oh
what,
yeah, I
you know.
mean, some of the great spiritual teachers are very tough with their students at times. They'll really, really carve them up. I mean, like to wake them up, it's really to love them. All really is what it is. And I know myself, I've been that way. I mean, believe it or not, some people just say, "Oh, he's just soft and nice all the time." I bet, and no, it hasn't always been that way, and it isn't always that way. I've scared the hell out of people. I'm like, I remember being in little groups who are supporting each other. Basically yelling at someone, pounding on the table, and they're like, "Oh my god, what the hell's going on?" she was like this. Like I went to dinner with her because I wanted to calm her down. She was like this at dinner. I could tell, I could feel in the energy, just shaking. My hands are shaking right now. And like, I'm like, I said, hey, I don't know. It came through the way it did. I just trust it because I don't judge. I just can't judge it. Whatever needs to come through, I just assume that that's the way it needed to come through, and so I just I didn't say it was wrong. I didn't apologize.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, hey, sorry if it ruffled your feathers, but maybe probably, I'm sure it's exactly what you needed at the same time, to be honest. So,
Did
and,
she did she report back to you like a few days later or any time later?
no, she just says, yeah, like she was just too shaken at the time. I think I know she appreciated what came through ultimately. I just, I always know what's right. I don't mean to
Yeah.
back her, but I mean, I'll share another story. And this was years ago. I don't want to scare people too much, but I had a client just was telling us stories about something, right? And it's just like same old stories. Like, well, blah, blah, blah. I said, you keep talking this crap. I'm hanging up on you right now. And he goes, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I warned you. Bang. He hung up on him, calls back. Well, okay. All right. Good. All right. So are we good? All right. Okay. All right. You talking crap again. I'm going to hang up on you again. And I did. And I mean, but he kept calling back. He respected, he understood, like, I get it. Like, you're telling me, get off my story. Why do I keep going on about this nonsense? I know better. And just cut it out. And so, I mean, we are asked to show up in ways that are loving to ourselves and others that may not always seem, pretty. And I always tell people, even if you feel bad afterwards, like if you thought it was too sideways or too much, like, I mean, it's possible we could totally go off the deep end and get so unconscious and we're not centered and we're just yelling and screaming at somebody. Like, it may not be so pretty, it may not be good in the moment, or at least not making that look good. But the truth is it needed to come out that way, and to trust it, not to be afraid for that to come out. Most things, usually it's a more verbal, emotional thing. It's not usually you're gonna physically hurt somebody, or take their life. But like it's like you're just you can't be afraid to go there. Is my point. And I think a lot of people are so suppressing so many of their energies, their shadows, we call them, right, and all those things, that they won't go there, and then that's just keeping them invisible, like in their business, and invisible in their life, and not being who they are, right? So that's where they need the uncensored self-love coach help.
Yeah. Oh, totally. So that's one thing too. When you suppress, when you're getting divine guidance, like to say something to a client or to a friend or anybody, and you suppress it, you're saying, no thanks, I don't need that gift. Like, F you, God,
Yeah.
and you're not going to be given so many gifts next time. Like, you really get to say yes to it in order for more things to open up. Like once I start saying yes, like I'm really auditory, like I'll hear exact words to say. Once I started doing that regularly, my visual field started opening up, and I get visions now of where I see people like in their zones, their areas of genius.
Mhm.
And they it just like I get these downloads and they're visual now, which I didn't even know that was possible for me because I've
Mhm.
always been auditory. But
Mhm.
I said yes. And so the more we say yes to the divine, to God, whatever you call it, the more gifts we're going to get access to. And it's really fun. It's really fun when I tell people, like, this is what this is what's coming in for you. And they're like, holy crap, that sounds amazing. Yes, I want that. Like,
Right, exactly, right. I know,
yeah.
I know. It's so awesome. And you're right. I mean, we have so many latent gifts that we don't even believe are possible for ourselves. We had another guest on said, one day, I don't know, like somebody was saying in a group or whatever, like was saying like, oh, I'm not clairvoyant. I don't believe, I just don't have the gift, whoever. Like, well, how long do you want to have that story? You could be clairvoyant. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't want to edit this. So I'm going to be clairvoyant. And then all of a sudden, like, all of a sudden they conceive images and, they're seeing things and whatnot. It's like, a lot of it's just a story. It's all a story. It's just, we've made up these stories that I'm limited this way or that way. It does, honestly, so much of it can be dismantled, like right on the spot. And if it matters to you, I really believe, like, if it's something that really is like something you really want to experience, like just quit telling the story that you don't have it, and just start saying, yeah, no, I'll have it, and then you will. I mean, you'll have that quality, or that that quality is the big thing. But that thing in your life, we just so limit ourselves, and with our stories, right? These stories are just always so delusional.
Yeah, and we don't even notice we're doing it. We don't even notice most of the time we have the stories until we become conscious by stalking our thoughts. That reminds me of this quote too. I'm going to mess it up, but it's like, God loved us so much, he created us in his image, and we repaid him by recreating him in ours.
Right, right. That's a good quote. Yeah,
Like
like.
limited with these angry emotions and punishing, and like that's all crap. Like that's not the God I choose to believe in. The
Mhm.
God I choose to believe in says you're unlimited. You have
Right,
access to everything right now. It's
right.
not a process. You don't have to work hard to get it. Like it's there now when you say yes and trust it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So from there, I mean, I want to just go right into. I know that you help people to be able to say yes to they want what they want right now, and so I was wondering if it'd be a good time for you to share the this wonderful, very generous, actually, free gift you have for our listeners. So you want to tell them about it?
Yes. So, what I'm offering is a divine guidance call. It's like a 45-minute call where once I have permission from you, I will get downloads from the divine of what I see possible for you. And, if you have any confusion, any doubts on what your path is, book a call because it will come if you give me permission, it will come through. And I'll tell you what I see possible for you. And if it is in alignment, I will make you an offer to work with me. If it's not, then I'll give you some recommendations of what I think your next best steps are. And I never ever make anybody an offer unless I feel it's a good fit for both of us because I don't come from that place of lack. Like I am here to serve. And my one and only goal on these calls is to make a difference for you. And I can only do that when I'm coming from a place of 100% generosity. And that's how I live my life.
Hmm. Nice, nice. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and put that into the show notes, the Divine Guidance call link. And where can they go to find you? Like, is there a URL that's easy for them, like your website or whatnot, if they want to get in touch with you there?
Yes, it's uncensoredselflovecoach.com.
Hmm.
And yeah, you can find me there. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram under my name, Karen Seltz. And I do things on my personal page usually. I do a lot of lives on my personal page.
Nice, nice, nice. So wonderful. So you can go to uncensoredselflovecoach.com or click to the link here in the show notes to go get your divine guidance call or just reach out to Karen at uncensoredselflovecoach.com and go ahead and connect with her and let her know that you want to, get that divine guidance call. And so from there, Karen, this is a time of show that I like to go ahead and do my own tuning in using the scanning gifts that I've been sharing with people for a very long time. So, would you like to receive for a minute or two?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and tune in here for you. Okay, let's see what wants to come through. Got kind of this, I just, again, I share what kind of, this is uncensored show. So I get like the skinny dipping image, like you, like just like this, like the boldness that you have, like, I feel like in some ways you're still being, you're being as bold as ever, right? But like this other part, like I'm gonna like, yeah, just go skinny dipping every once in a while, whatever. Like these other like ways of being bold that um, maybe you've held back a little bit, given some of the past. So it's like I'm kind of feeling like some of that wants to come out and play, but it maybe in a new way, right? So whatever that is. So that was the image they gave me to share that with you. So however that translates for you, all right? So okay, I just share the way it comes through. All right, so let's see what else has come through. Yeah, they're showing me they're saying Kundalini rising, so it's a feeling of like the energy wanting, starting to, turn on more. It feels like in the root chakra there's some heaviness, but I feel some of the, overall I feel some energy that's been turning on, and then like you said with your third eye, so see that energy how that's developed and open. So in the root chakra, let's see what's going on there. Hearing like, okay, again on the uncensored show, I get like, come on, airhead, get your feet on the ground, come back to earth. It's kind of what I'm hearing, like one level, like So I get this feeling like this is where like the self-love comes in, and you've worked on this a lot, but it's like I get like, what are you, stupid, and all this stuff, energy I feel from the past. So right now you're really deepening in your like this sense of infinite intelligence. Like I'm not. It doesn't matter what people think about. Like if they think I'm too much air some in the past or whatever, and I didn't seem to be in my brain or whatever. But like I've got this infinite intelligence, this incredible channel of wisdom and knowledge to share with people, and increasingly you get it, like that's where the real intelligence is anyway. So and then I see that wanting to land through your energy, through your chakras and ground and all that sort of stuff. So that's the message I'm getting there. And yeah, that's about it. So I could go on and on, but I just share a few things for the show. I don't know, any quick thoughts or reflections, questions, or anything on that, Karen?
I don't know. It's really interesting the first thing you shared, like about skinny dipping, because one of the things pre-COVID I did a lot was sweat lodges,
Okay.
and I do co-ed sweat lodges, and there most people go in nude, and because of my background, I wear a swimsuit, and I'm like, and it's really interesting. Even when I was active in my addiction, I was very funny about people that I didn't choose to be intimate with seeing me naked. I'm like, they don't need to see me naked. Like, that's private.
Interesting. All
So it's
right. Maybe
really
another level
funny.
of growth there for you, Karen.
Yeah,
That's a big one. That's a
it's
big one.
really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good, good. I'm glad I brought it up. Like I say, that I can just let myself be uncensored and share it when it comes through. Right? Okay.
Yeah, it's funny, huh?
Yeah. Perfect. Perfect.
Thank you
So,
for that. I really appreciate it. It's a new level of exposure.
yeah, there we go. See where this one goes. This is kind of fun. All right. We'll see. It's fun stuff. So everybody, if you want to check me out more, you can go to yoursacredpurpose.com. I have a free meditate and make money meditation there to tune you in, open up your chakras, and turn that money energy on. And also you can get a free, well, not a free, but like you see how you can get a energy scan consultation with me there. It's essentially free, but you'll see the details about that. So you can go to yoursacredpurpose.com, check all that out, and take advantage of the free meditate and make money meditation. Start dialing in for yourself today. All right, Karen. So as we're wrapping up the show, do you have any last words of wisdom or badassery or anything else to share? It's okay.
Yes, go do something that scares the crap out of you. Like, what's something that you've really been avoiding? Maybe it's making amends to somebody. Maybe you messed up in a relationship. Like, if there are any relationships that you have that are not a 10 out of 10, clear it. Clear your side of the street. Like, be responsible for the state of that relationship. Go clear it and see what happens. It's amazing what happens in your relationships when you become willing to be 100% responsible for the state of the relationship. No matter what's happened, no matter what they did, when you come from that place of being 100% responsible for everything, it takes all the pressure off of them, and your relationships will become intimate and loving and fun and happy. So that's my parting bits of wisdom. Thank you
Awesome.
so much for having me. This has been a blast. I love it.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks for sharing that. And this last thought I have on that I think might be helpful is share too is like people think taking 100% responsibility is like a burden. It's actually the opposite. Actually, it's like empowering. So just remember that it's actually empowering and let yourself experience it that way, and you'll experience that. So thanks for sharing everything you had to share today, and for just for who you are, and the unique empowerment that you bring, the way you bring it. And I know that the right people are always finding you, getting exactly the help they need right here, right now. So I'm just so grateful that you came and shared what you did today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And for the rest of you, thank you for tuning in. Keep on tuning in, and we'll keep on rocking it here, Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Till next time, everyone. Bye now. For listening to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Stay tuned for our next upcoming new episodes each Wednesday and Saturday.
Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to help us to serve you best. As a reminder, you can get your free Meditate and Make Money meditation at www.yoursacredpurpose.com to rock your sacred purpose. Goodbye for now, everybody.